The process of Lo Ban Pai in terms of the internal system is everyone can imagine they've got a shape. Everyone has a certain configuration, so that configuration will be balanced by the fact of your size of your bones, the features of your face, everything like this. So everybody's unique to themselves. Everybody's absolutely unique completely. So when we look at this, then we've got to define on the altar of our perception who we really are in terms of our true personality, and then try and govern that true personality from your heart center instead of your mind. So these are the first things to do. And once you get into your heart center and you're completely open and you put the better part of yourself on the altar of your perception, then you proceed from there and try to mute the mind's approach in terms of its repetitive nature, to flip you back into something that is not really natural. So the mind and the emotion, the way that they work at the moment in our society, is not really natural, and the way where we're going is away from our general consensus of our beautiful, loving selves. So. And what I've noticed over the years of teaching is that a lot of people have a great deal of difficulty dropping the mind, going into their deranged emotions, which are hidden through social engineering. And when you hit those they come up, and it's not really a true heart process. It's a process of rebounding and protecting the emphasis of something which needs to be broken into, so somebody can grow to higher levels of consciousness in terms of the opening of the heart. So when we look at this, it's basically the formulas that have been socially engineered. We remove those incrementally to allow certain elements to arrive inside of the body. So you have your body, you have your mind, you have your emotions, and you do Lo Ban Pai, and you take certain shapes. You do certain shapes, you move through them. These shapes create a form of emptiness inside the body, and start to configure the internal stratosphere away from what is normal into something which is open, because we've been educated to have our mind connected to our emotions, and not truly to an open perspective. So as we start to travel into this, you find your fascial. You see the shapes. The shapes are then practiced. Once you practice those shapes, you then open and close your bones in terms of electric and magnetic principle. And as you learn this, your body begins to expand and start to experience something different. And when you're opening and closing the bones, you go to electric and magnetic. Then the process of the electromagnetic emphasis in terms of how the form is practiced. Then you'll discover that there are fascial lines inside of the water body, which is your energy body. And this water body, once your fascial lines go through this, your mind realizes there's fascial lines. Once the fascial lines are activated, then the mind looks at the fascial lines. It looks, listens, and feels into those fascial lines. It switches off the mind immediately, because it's examining something which can't speak back to you. It will show you where it's going in terms of the emphasis of what you've discovered. And when your mind does this, it goes like this, and then rebounds back to its social emphasis in terms of thinking about what's occurred. So then you realize that what you're thinking about, what's occurred, is the emphasis of a socially engineered mind. So the mind goes through there, empties, and then rebounds back. Once you discover this, then from the power of emptiness, there's the principles of the thief and the ghost, which is the thief is the mind, and the ghost is the projected feeling. So these two elements, if you read Power of Emptiness, become very, very obvious in terms of being, knowing, and not doing what you think you know. So you can rebound back into being, which is to receive exactly what's in front of you, until you can grow spiritually into receiving something purely. You never go towards anybody. You never project towards anybody energetically, because this is a very, very the very thing we have to organize ourselves to be away from. Because if you do this, then you cause a very, very strong karmic link between someone. If you go to someone and you project yourself away from your body. Now in Lo Ban Pai, the emphasis is you receive. And going is not really spiritually viable as far as I'm concerned, because going to someone is a form of abuse, and also defining the reason why you would go to someone instead of receiving someone is a big thing for me, because over the years, what has happened is that Russia and America, they're experimenting with remote viewing. They're very good at it, and they can remote view. But what they've done is they've taken the emphasis of themselves and traveled to an alternate position, and this alternate position they bring it back to themselves, and it's warfare. So it's you're gaining something for your advantage to disadvantage somebody else. So when you look at this sort of remote viewing and how this can occur, you can be put into a position of violation in terms of not wanting someone to discover something, and then wanting to discover what somebody else is hiding. This is like the whole emphasis behind this, as far as I'm concerned, is incorrect, because you create a line or a format of infiltration which is not rightfully so. So then you're going to say, well, how does Lo Ban Pai work in comparison to this particular principle? Now, I could tell you a whole lot of stories, but I won't go into that story. In terms of how I was tested with this, is that somebody was inquiring certain things from me, and they were in their late 60s at this particular stage, and they were in a particular place which wasn't what they said they were, because they were just trying to work out whether I could remote view them. And they said they were part of the military here, and they said but they were actually somewhere else. They were actually testing me. They would say that I'm part of the military here. I've got problems with two people, and I said, well, can you visualize those people for me? And then I realized that he wasn't ground force, he was somewhere else. So when I said, well, no, I know that you're not really telling me the absolute truth, because you're saying you're somewhere where you're not. And he said, how did you know that? I reverse engineered your imagery into my body. I didn't go to you. Yeah. So a reverse remote viewing is what I do. And the remote viewing, which has been taught, is that people travel out to other people to discover what's there. So reverse remote viewing gives absolute truth in terms of the feeling of your own feeling centers, so that you receive somebody. Receiving somebody is not a violation of their particular where they are and what they're doing. But if you travel to them, yes, it is a violation. But if you receive them, it's not a violation, because their memories are inside of your body, because they're kind of testing you in a way to see whether you go the opposite way. So you receive them inside of your body. They go into an empty line that you've dealt with, and when they're inside of that empty line, you know exactly their visual imagery and everything like this, because you receive them. You don't go there and then say, well, I went there and I'm looking around and I found them. No, you just receive them, because that's what everybody does. When somebody knocks on your door, you open up the door and you receive them, you bring them into your house. Someone knocks on your door and then runs away, you don't try and concentrate where they are. You don't chase them, you receive them inside your home. So when you receive them inside your home, then they're there because they're in contact with you. So then we look at it from the perspective of an empathic view. You receive somebody, you receive either ill-gotten feelings, and then you release those in dreams. You release those in visions, in visionary dreams in the evening, because you don't want to have anything to do with their projection. Because when you do receive someone, they're actually projected something into you that you have to deal with. And if you do this, then you know it's a violation to project to someone else, because you're receiving projections. You understand? So from Lo Ban Pai's perspective, you never go outside of your body. You always stay inside of your body and receive, and then you deal with the energies that are inside of your body, which is quite an extraordinary task. So then you've got to look at how does this really occur, and how does it work? Now, when you're doing Lo Ban Pai and you go through your fascial lines, it empties your mind. You go through your fascial lines, and maybe something inside your wind channels will pop up because you reverse breathe. Now, those wind channels will be cleared by the pressure of your breathing, and so you've got your physical form, you got your musculature, you got your opening and closing your bones, electric and magnetic. And then you go through your fascial lines. It switches your mind off. You follow that, and it clears your mind. And then you go into your energy body. Your energy body is full of water, 75% water. As you're going in and out, and you clear your lines, and you go further, you functional, you relax your dantian down, and you become totally internally operational. And when you do this, and you then do your reverse breathing, you do your compression and release, and then you discover wind channels inside your body. Then those wind channels clear. When those wind channels are clear, you have wind channels all the way through your body, and they're usually vertical. And they are vertical, actually. And these wind channels, when they're clear, people can enter those wind channels, and they can actually, they enter you. And as they enter you, it goes into your heart process. Heart process goes through your throat. You don't think about it. You speak it. You listen to what you're saying. So then you're observing somebody being released through your wind channels, through your heart process, through your throat. You're speaking to them, but you're listening to what you're saying, but you're feeling the feeling that they've projected, and then you give voice to the feelings that they've projected, because you're a teacher. And then these feelings then are put on the table to be examined. And the biggest thing is that people will say, well, that's not really possible. You can't really know me. And it is really true. If you clear your wind channels and you're empathic, whatever someone projects to you goes into the wind channel. It arises inside of you if the wind channel isn't occupied by you emotionally in any way whatsoever. So this is the next level. You go through the formula of your body. Your body then, you open and close your joints, you discover your fascia. I teach everybody very, very quickly where the fascial lines are. You travel through the fascial lines, and then you do reverse breathing. And when you do reverse breathing, then you find the wind channels. As you go through the wind channels, the energy shoots through them. It's very, very strong, and it's clear. If those wind channels aren't clear, then it brings up emotional stuff. And when that emotional stuff comes up, you sit down, you talk to them, they release their emotions into your clear wind channels. As they go into your wind channels, they go into your heart process of being lovingly embracing that person, comes through your throat. You listen to what you're saying. Then you speak to them about what's inside of your body, because they sent it to you by virtue of the fact that is a projection of their mind coming through. And if the student understands what the process of what's occurring here, they're open to it. But if they're closed to this and you've never met them before, they'll challenge you and say, you don't know me. And when this occurs, from my perspective, if there's no chance to get in, I just leave it alone completely and just move on, because that door's completely shut, because they have the belief system that there's no communal basis in terms of our interactions as human beings, which there is, absolutely. So when it goes into the wind channel, it comes out, and then the dilemma which is inside of their body, which is promoting their mind and their emotion in terms of the function of a severe loop. You speak to that. It goes back to the wind channel, their wind channel, which is blocked, and usually they feel a bit of grief and they start to cry, and they feel that somebody's touching on something very tender. You do it like this, and they end up crying. But if they don't end up crying, they now end up weaponized and attacking you. So then you got to deal with that. So you receive that, go home, and take it into a stratosphere of energy which belongs to the low ebb and flow of that, and then that's released, and then you go back. Then I go back to work, and then I continue like this, and this is how it works from the perspective of Lo Ban Pai. So there was a video where I did explain. It was the last video with Alyssa, where I explained that when someone sends a certain frequency, this frequency then is taken into an alternate realm while I'm sleeping, and I did explain that certain forces can appear. There's no such thing, as far as I'm concerned, as demonic forces. There's only deranged human feelings, and the deranged human feelings then formulate something that looks very, very scary, and they try to converge on me while I take them into my dreaming, because they're inside of me. I haven't gone anywhere else. I've actually received it, and then I release it, escape from it, and then keep going like this. So there's never any projection, because it's a very, very bad luck to be energetically connected to someone in terms of projecting, you're being nasty, I don't like you. This formulates a form of entanglement of mind emotion towards somebody else. This is karma. So what we're doing is reverse engineering the process of the karmic lines in terms of projections. So when we look at this, This is how the process really works in terms of releasing someone from their dilemma. So it's so does anybody have any questions? because from shamanism, let me say one thing. Shamanism said Carlos Castaneda was the one who actually did this, and I think a lot of traditions believe that you can go into an animal. They believe you can go visit somebody else. This is a violation; it should not be done. We're the guardians of this planet. You do not go into animals. You do not fly in the consciousness of animals to fly over someone and look at something, because you're violating that animal. You should be aware enough to wait for things to come to you instead of searching for something. You understand? So having the power of thinking you have the power to project, go into an animal, thinking you have the power to project your energy body to go there. Your energy body is safeguarded primarily for your death. It's got nothing to, you shouldn't use it for living. You shouldn't use it to entangle yourself with some sort of shamanic process. The energy body, or the double, is meant to release from you to allow you to enter into the sphere of a communion with God. That's what it's for, and that's what I've experienced. So it's so whenever my double comes out, my double tried to tempt me, which was many years ago, in terms of giving me powers. I said no thanks, and then it sort of it realized it couldn't tempt me. So then I stopped, and then it just would leave my body and maybe stay 10 feet, 5 feet away at the end of my bed, and then my spine lights up, goes to gold. My wife's a bit scared because she sees me in two places, but because it's released and my body is sunk and it's very heavy, not moving, because when you die, it goes to the ground. So there are two forces inside of your body. There's a ground force, and there's a heavenly force. The ground force goes to the ground. The heavenly force releases inside of your an exact Jupiter view that goes into Bardo. So when this occurs, this is a sacred process. But when you're doing Lo Ban Pai, you have a ground force. But when the ground force goes down, heavenly force comes up. So they're contained in this way, in terms of not dualistic, but there's a double function. So when you sink, you rise, and when you rise, you sink. So there's two forces going on inside the body because of the yin and yang. So when you look at this, the double is only to be used for the capacity to communicate with the universal mind, which is the universal mind is huge. And universal mind has got nothing to do with our memory. It's got to do with the memory, which is locked in the etheric field of the planet, in terms of the Akashic field, or the Akashic records, which means memories. So when you're doing universal mind and you practice universal mind, you actually wanted to absorb the memories of someone who succeeded in quite a dramatic way through the centuries, through thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And as you go into universal mind, you're absorbing their memory, but you can't absorb their memory with the memory of the mind or the social mind itself. So the social mind is very dangerous, because if you want to absorb universal mind, you have to wait for that memory to come to you. Now, when you're waiting for this memory to come to you, maybe your wind channels are opened up, and you're practicing universal mind, and you're waiting for the memory of whatever's happened previously to come upon you as the wisdom that you can express. But it has to move upon you naturally through your heart, then through your throat, through your own realizations of true communion, heartfelt communion, with no agenda attached to that. So when we look at this, what is universal mind in terms of the wind channels, in terms of what we do? If I look at my wind channel, it's empty, then I go back to an empty mind, and then I disappear. If I go to my wind channel, there's nothing there. My mind doesn't exist. But if I go to my wind channel, there's an emotional ebb and flow. I come back to my mind. Then these two crash together, and you can't progress, because you're fighting with the memory of whatever you feel is emotionally emphasized in your life, and you can't move into the empty part of your wind channels. So then you got work to do. So then you got to work through your wind channels to empty this. Now, if you're empty, you go to your empty channel and you go to empty mind, and then you're working on universal mind. You wait for the progressive elements of the natural functioning of your framework as a human being in terms of your original personality. Now, so if someone enters my wind channels with their emotion, I notice that, because I don't practice the same emotion that they project. So when I see that it comes back, it doesn't go into my mind, comes through my throat, and then I deliver that back to the person. So this is how it works. So when you get to the point where your wind channels are clear, you become a conduit of other people's intentions. But being a conduit of other people's intentions is the only thing you can do at this particular point, because when you're jostling and practicing very, very deeply to become connected to the universal mind, you're tested through the human condition to see what you do with another human being. As you do this with another human being, your heart is completely open. Their deranged feelings come in. It affects your heart. Your power of your heart has to be kept stable through the feelings that you do not want to have contact with. So it's a big test for you. So God is inside of you in terms of your heart consciousness, and the test of those feelings come into your heart. It will feel like it breaks your heart. It will feel like it's a very, very hard test, and that's just the way it is when you get to a certain level. But you never do the opposite. You never go to somebody. You always wait for them to come to you, because this is the process. Because when your wind channels are empty, you receive, then you speak, and then you listen to what you're saying. And then the other person, if they're honest and they really want to progress, they will say, "Wow, you're onto it." And then it really moves on from there. And if there's complete honesty, then going into the wind channels not necessary. You just be open-hearted and talk about the process. You don't need this magical process of a teacher to occur. So that was a very, very quick summary of what goes on with someone that if my students become teachers, this is what I expect. I will not use my system to fight with. I will not use aggression in this way, but I will ask them to open up the wind channel so this process occurs. So receiving is more important than going. So when someone comes to you and they project upon you, they send you an email, they project you from a distance, I feel it because I receive it. But nowhere in the world should you ever follow the same premise for yourself as someone who practices Lo Ban Pai, because that's a violation. Because once you energetically connect like this, it has enormous ramifications on your karmic body in terms of what's going to be remembered when you go through Bardo. You receive, suffer what you receive, but never go to do anything to anybody, and that's the general rule. So then it's the opposite of what you expect, because you would say, well, I'm going to project on that person because they're projecting on me. No, you receive it. You give kindness to the person that's home with you, and you don't tell them what's happened, and then the process of what's occurred to you previously, even if you receive something, becomes a loving process with your partner, or loving process with the next person you meet. So these are very, very simple practices, but I've noticed nobody can put them into practice because of the social dilemma. I've got a right to focus. I've got a right to pay back. I've got a right to speak bad or everything like this. But no, nobody really has that right. So when people get to the point where I invite them to the white crane, I'm actually asking them to clear, and it's the type of reverse breathing. The breath will cause a lot of heat inside of the body and a lot of opening. Yeah. So it's yeah, and this is what Lo Ban Pai is about, is actually opening these particular channels and not projecting towards other people. It's a very, very defined process. And the process to actually even take a shape changes your energy field. To apply that shape over and over and over again, then opening and closing the joints occurs, and then the fascial lines become obvious. This is the first step. And then from the fascial lines, you then go to the dante and activate the dante to be unified to yoke. Once you're yoked, then the wind channels will become very, very obvious as they're going through. But when people learn white crane, for me, the very thing that goes through, when it goes through my channels, it usually goes through their wind channels as well. So they become aware of the wind channels straight away. And then you've got to go to deeper levels after that. And the deeper level is very, very difficult. You have to go through this first. And this takes quite a long time to come to terms with. And this is the going into the internal arts. This is basically just the preliminary to what happens afterwards, because there are amazing things that happen after your wind channels open up, and the universal criteria in terms of the heart opening process is made very, very obvious too, and you're very, very responsible beyond that upon that particular point. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because in this time, right now, we've got to be very, very careful not to go insane. because people are going insane at the moment because they can't handle their emotions. They can't handle the heart process. They're living a lie. They come to a teacher like me and they go, well, you don't know me. And I said, okay, I don't know you. And I just let them go. If they're not ready for it, they're not ready for it. And, I have to accept that, but that breaks my heart because they come to see me. People come to see me. I want to learn, but I don't want to be told anything about what I need to learn. This is the biggest problem. So if you do come and see me, it's a very, very loving process. They'll prove it for you. It's a loving process.
Yes.
but it doesn't mean it won't be confronting, because there is a certain thing about being totally open to someone on a heart process is very confronting for something which is hidden in the background. So the test is, once you speak from your heart through your trachea, because the trachea is an enormous center of silence. So if you want to look at the process of Lo Ban Pai as a sutra, how does the sutra work? The word is spoken, then there's a release in silence. But the word is spoken, the sutra is spoken by the person in terms of their stuck dilemma. That is their sutra, that is their mantra, is where they're stuck. They keep repeating a mantra, or the recitation is mind, emotion, mind, emotion, mind, emotion. That is given to me. So that's the sutra. I take that sutra and then turn it into quietude, and it goes into my body. I bring it back out in a voice, which is the representation of that sutra in terms of what's really going on. So this is an internal process for the teacher. So it's a big responsibility in terms of changing people's process, in terms of receiving, giving it back to them, and then having a true conversation about this particular process. I had a lot of people wanted me to do distant heating. They sent me their photo. They said what they want. I received it inside of my body. I worked inside of my body. They healed. You don't have to project. You have to receive them with your love and kindness, with your sincerity. As soon as you receive them with your sincerity, something changes immediately. You don't need to go to them. You don't need to go to their distant point. You receive them just by them making the prospect of, can you help me? And you say, yes, I can help you. And because you say that, they automatically land inside of you. Automatically. So everything inside of me is universal, really, because everything inside is outside, but it's a process of staying inside. And like they would send me a picture, they would say, this is what I want. Same as I ask my students, I say, if you've got a problem, write it to me. I'll listen to it. I cut and paste the list to it and just put I love you and send it off to them, and slowly they get released. Don't go to anybody. I allow them to come in and I feel them. Because you get an email, you feel them, you get a picture, you feel them, they're already inside. Yeah, so if someone wants remote healing, automatically you're inside yourself. You're concerned, your love towards your humanity is then expressed through your own heart in terms of how I can see that, or you're inside yourself. As soon as you nurture that, you nurture them. But the moment you try to nurture outside of that, you become diffused and maybe a little bit confused, because you go, okay, how can I get to that person? You don't have to. They've already arrived. Yeah. So if I want to be with my wife, I bring the feeling of my wife inside of me. I don't have to project home when I'm at work. She's inside of me. What do I do with my wife when I'm at work? My wife's here, and I treat everybody exactly the same way. If I see anything opposite to my wife, I speak to it, because she's my Buddha. She's the preciousness that's within my heart. That's all you do. Because why would you pick up a stone to hit a target when you already can see the target, and the target's inside of yourself? Because the eyes do exactly this. They see something outside, they take it, they reverse it, put it in. So as soon as you see something, it's inside immediately. So why do you need to travel there? It's already there. So if somebody sends you, the whole process is internal. The confusion is that people think power is to reach beyond a certain point. Yeah. So this was a big thing that I wanted to explain, because of the experiences I've had over the last maybe 2 weeks, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because nobody really understands what I'm doing. Yeah, so it's basically, and yes, I can say it breaks my heart, because I don't want to fail in any way whatsoever. I'm a human being. I don't want to fail at what I'm doing, but I want everybody to understand what I'm doing. So the failure for me is that I miss the opportunity to help that person. This breaks me. And if we're not like this with everybody we meet, there's something wrong. that person. No, they're testing you, and you let the test happen, and then you let them with their illusion. If they can't break through the illusion, you've got to let them go. But if they can break through their illusion, you start to embrace everybody. They'll receive you inside, you receive them inside. There's no projection. It's all reception. But if there's a projection upon you when you get received inside, then that's a violation, actually. So the teacher deals with the violation. The violation is the person that doesn't want to change, that goes inside your body, that wants to combatively say to you, no, you can't possibly know me after seeing me for 3-4 minutes. I said, yeah, it is. You're inside of me. Yeah, I didn't go outside to interfere with it. You automatically receive when you're a teacher. That's just the plain hard truth of it. And you have to deal with those particular feelings. Then you navigate those feelings with an enormous amount of intelligence. And if you don't have the intelligence, then you have to trip over everything till you get to the point where you learn to understand your own process and then give the process back to the person, just like I did in terms of how you go through the layers of your body. Once you get to wind channels, enormous amounts of magic happens when you discover your wind channels, but the wind channels cannot be discovered by the mind. The mind will only reflect on the emotion. The wind channels will not be available for that person. You're not only you're acting from your wind channels, but you're acting from a very, very deep characteristics of those particular wind channels. And there's deeper layers behind that. I've only gone to the fundamental levels that I can show people immediately. There's more behind this. Yeah. And then there's a process of actually, when you've got somebody in front of you that you know is in a state of trust, you know that they're not projecting, you put down your eyes, you put down your wind channels, and you talk lovingly and let them move through it. And they say there's talk therapy. No, you're just not using your wind channels to send back to them what they've given you. They're honest enough to do it themselves, so you don't need to do it. So then you switch off the seeing capacity, and then you're in a loving circumstance of pure communication, and the magic which has been afforded you put to the side, and the magic between two people occur because of honest communication. God, I'm 10 to the dozen, aren't I? Yeah, so this is the basic truth of Lo Ban Pai in terms of how it functions, and I'm sure when I explain this, everybody kind of understands that there are lines inside the body, and the lines inside of the body is where you can be caught. And when you're caught in the lines in the body or the wind channels, and the wind channels are very, very deep. So when you're caught inside the wind channel, the mind and the emotion, I won't even realize that the wind channel needs to be released because you don't know how to compress and release the wind channel. Breathe through it, and causes a tremendous amount of heat. You start sweating like crazy. And when you open and close these particular channels, and every you compress the wind channel, it opens up, and then the energy just rushes through it. Now, if there's anything held there, then I get people to sit down on the couch, and then they'll start bobbling into things that have been activated. And then you discover the real thing in front of you, and then you work on that. Yeah. So this is the process of Lo Ban Pai. I've just explained it in like this. So going out divorces you from a certain feelings, and a certain it actually makes you more responsible to actually come from internally to you receive the person. You become very responsible inside of yourself in terms of your own integral reaction to that. If your reaction will show exactly where you are, and honestly, where you are is exactly what you really need to see so you can progress. So that if I say, well, it breaks my heart, I've got to get tougher, but I can't get tougher because I need this open. So I don't want to get tough. I want to be more and more angelic. And the more angelic you get, the more sensitive you become. And that is just the journey, So basically, if somebody has some restriction, the restriction comes inside of you, and you've dealt with that restriction, or you know that restriction, you coexist within your evolutionary process because you're clearing this yourself as well. And because you're 10 steps ahead of them, you may pull them one step, and as you pull them one step, the teacher will take 1,000 steps because of this. Because of their care and their devotion towards that person, they alleviate their own wind channel line of restriction, because they know exactly what the person's dealing with, because they're still dealing with them themselves. But there's a fast track action going on in terms of, oh, I realize you're dealing with what I'm dealing with, but I've got grains of sand that is left inside of me, but thank God you're pushing on this. I realize then I clear this as I clear you, and then boom, and the person then sits in a position which they don't feel like they've moved anywhere, but you feel like you've moved a great distance in terms of your observational capacity of their body and your body simultaneously. So it's symbiotic. There's no process that doesn't involve the heart. No process. If a process which is which supersedes the heart, it destroys the process of communication. And superseding the heart, I believe you shouldn't go to someone, you shouldn't go into an animal, you shouldn't do this. The shamanistic view is absolutely wrong in terms of this. What's absolutely right is to receive in your heart, give back from your heart, and this is the process which we all need to evolve toward, because this is what we've been taught to put to the side. Don't look at that, don't look at that, because you're searching for something which needs to be searched for. Look at this, look at this. And that's and I believe the old paradigm has to be totally wiped out for the heart to move forward, for a new paradigm to come to the surface, and a new ability to actually be absorbed within universal consciousness, which actually is God consciousness, and it's universal. It's big, it's so huge. So I can have a heart consciousness opening and see the entity of God, but somebody else can have the same process, either lower or higher, but you're still in that process. And that process it will define where you shouldn't step. It will tell you that's not, you can't go there. You won't even have that question inside of you once you get to this. Because being absorbed in your old memories is different to absorbing the memories of those who have done this before, which we've forgotten severely. And by waiting for the memories of something to converge upon you in terms of universal consciousness, you tap into the tenderness of the love of the universe, which is actually there, even though it's a very dangerous universe in terms of don't go to this, don't do that, because it'll bite you, you go down that hole, you'll hurt yourself. This is really true. There are dangers in the world, but there's a very, very beautiful process which we're all missing. Our human condition is being tested at the moment severely. And this condition has to be faced openly. If you can't talk to someone, you act with integrity. They may not be able to see you, but you know you haven't hurt them. You've accommodated their meanness. Let yourself accommodate that. Let yourself be wounded. Don't wound somebody else, because that is a very, very big no-no in terms of the karmic effect. Because when you go through Bardo, it'll be amplified, and what will come at you will be 10 times stronger, or a million times stronger than your intention.